In the previous lesson, we analyzed the environmental impact of artificial intelligence, focusing mainly on deep learning techniques that have represented the state of the art in recent years. However, the scenario has recently changed with the emergence and rapid spread of generative artificial intelligence for natural language processing, NLP, with tools like ChatGPT for text generation and DALL-E for image generation, which have become support tools for the daily activities of millions of users. A concrete indicator of this growth is the generative AI services market, estimated at tens of billions of dollars and increasing by more than 40% annually. In addition to the growth of the market associated with generative AI, another important aspect is the increase in the complexity of the models used. The simplest parameter to measure is the scale of the models. GPT-2, released in 2019, had about 1.5 billion parameters. GPT-3, released in 2020, had about 175 billion. The latest update in 2023, GPT-4, is estimated to have hundreds of billions of parameters, although its exact size is not known. This increase in scale has direct implications in terms of energy consumption. A 2019 report had already highlighted that training large NLP models could emit amounts of CO2 comparable to dozens of transcontinental flights. More recent estimates suggest that with optimization techniques and efficient data centers, the impact can be mitigated, but it still remains significant. In this lesson, we will analyze the environmental impact of generative AI from different perspectives to better understand its implications. First of all, to clarify the concepts discussed in this lesson, let's provide some definitions that will help us understand the main categories of models. Natural language processing, or NLP, is the field of artificial intelligence that studies and develops methods to enable machines to understand and generate natural language. It includes all the techniques, rules, and models used to analyze and generate texts, translate languages, and answer questions. A large language model, or LLM, is a type of machine learning model, typically based on deep learning, trained on enormous amounts of text to predict the next word in a sequence. These models use NLP techniques, but on a much larger scale, employing billions of parameters. Examples of these models are GPT-3 and GPT-4. Generative artificial intelligence, or generative AI, refers to all AI systems capable of generating new content, such as text, images, audio, music, video, and code. LLMs are a type of generative AI specifically for text. While NLP originated as early as the mid-20th century and then gradually evolved over time, LLMs and generative AI are much more recent, and their emergence was made possible by the creation of very complex and consequently expensive AI models. Given their characteristics, the environmental impact of generative AI models is very high. These models, in fact, are extremely large, comprising hundreds of billions of parameters and using training data amounting to tens or even hundreds of terabytes. Training these models requires clusters of specialized GPUs, or TPUs, that operate for weeks or even months. It is estimated that training GPT-4 consumed about 1,750 mWh of energy, which is equivalent to the annual consumption of around 500 households. While in traditional AI models, the energy cost is mainly attributable to training, in the case of generative AI, even the inference phase, that is, the queries and responses generated by the model, has a significant impact. Even though the consumption for a single request is much lower than during the training phase, the extremely high number of requests multiplies the effect. Millions or billions of queries per day translate into enormous consumption, which over the long term can surpass that of training. For example, ChatGPT is estimated to receive over 200 million requests per day, with a consumption per query between 0.3 and 0.4 watts, which is about 10 times the consumption generated by making the same request on a search engine like Google Search. The total estimated daily consumption is about 60 MW. In addition to direct electricity consumption, we must also consider the environmental cost of producing dedicated hardware. The growing demand for generative AI has driven investments in specialized GPUs and advanced TPUs. These chips require manufacturing processes that are extremely energy-intensive and complex. The race to expand data centers to house these accelerators, therefore, has a significant indirect impact because it requires new factories, new cooling facilities, and adequate power infrastructure. To support the growing demand for generative AI, major providers are seeking solutions to ensure a stable and more sustainable energy supplies. For example, Microsoft has signed agreements to power its data centers with nuclear energy and has published plans for direct investments in small modular reactors dedicated to its cloud infrastructures. The idea is to reduce dependence on fossil fuels and mitigate the CO2 emissions associated with the massive energy consumption of data centers. However, these choices raise questions in the long term regarding costs, implementation timelines, and the risks associated with managing nuclear power, which is not without complex environmental impacts. Generative artificial intelligence has opened up extraordinary possibilities, but its development has very significant environmental impacts. The direct electricity consumption for training and inference, the production of specialized hardware, and the power supply strategies of the data centers that create and manage these models are now central issues for those involved in IT sustainability. This rapidly growing sector is also characterized by a lack of reliable data regarding the characteristics of the models used and their consumption. Addressing these challenges first and foremost requires greater transparency from providers, and then an integrated approach aimed at improving the efficiency of models and infrastructure, adopting targeted optimization techniques, and critically reflecting on the trade-off between performance and energy consumption. Only in this way will it be possible to ensure the development of generative AI that is truly sustainable and responsible.